5. A button you do not have to hit. It's Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we're talking about the 2024 anime, Terminator Zero. All right, you said you had an opening bit. Open away.
Yeah. So we got, those Instax cameras, the ones that have the expensive, modern, not Polaroid, but Fuji instant photo film.
Oh, yeah. I think you talked about those on the show a long time ago.
So we got this Instax Mini 12, and, it worked for a while, and then it stopped working. It had this basically, the Xbox 360 had the dreaded blinking red light. The Instax Mini has basically the dreaded blinking orange light. It's a thing that happens. And I had, even before, we got the thing for free. So it's like, I knew about the light before getting it, which is, knowing about the light problem, I wouldn't have bought one with money. But because I had seen, there was a previous thing of the day, says Dick's Fix. He was repairing cameras that had this problem by replacing a particular chip on them. Little IC or whatever. But people were saying, oh yeah, the problem is battery related. But I'm like, dude, I charged up these batteries like just now. They're the super Eneloops, the dark gray ones. They're fully charged. They came right out of the charger, and the camera's got the blinking orange light. What the heck's the problem, right? I don't think that's it. And of course, I don't own like a bench power supply or anything, so I can't check that way, If I had room, I would own one. But anyway, we're like, all right, well, we kind of still want to use the film we got. Maybe we should buy one, but I kind of want to fix this one. But the fix that I had seen other people do was not a fix I wanted to do. So I'm like, well, I did some last second research, and one person was like, yeah, you got to use like alkaline batteries. Your nickel metal hydride batteries aren't going to work. And
but
I'm like,
Dynamite.
Like,
I still got all the Eneloops we bought in Beacon, and actually they still have a lot, surprisingly good
I've been
capacity.
using the same sets of Eneloops for like a super long time.
Oh, same, like it's the original set. I have bought no more.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm like, all right, well, it's cheap to try that, and it means I don't have to open up the camera just yet or sell it. It's the least hassle to attempt that.
Did it work? Because then I'm mad.
So yeah, we go to the store. At the store, it's like they only sold like Duracell alkalines in like big packs, and I'm like, well, if I need a big pack, I'll go to Costco and get a big pack, right? But they had Energizer had lithium batteries that you could just get 4, a normal amount. But
not rechargeable, like primary cells?
Like non-rechargeable lithium, which I'm like, what? Like, why is that even a thing?
Oh, those have been a thing for a long time. They have a lot of very important uses. They're super great, but they shouldn't be used casually, I would say.
I don't know. But it is like, well, that's the only thing they got at this store that's not 20 batteries.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I guess we could at least try that and see. And it worked. And so I guess this camera, if you have an Instax Mini 12,
I guess it's just really sensitive to the voltage.
It's really picky about the voltage because there's nothing else that it could be, right? Or the current, right? It's super picky about what your battery being correct. And so if you have one, or if you're thinking about getting one, make sure that you go to Costco and buy a mega pack of batteries that go in the garbage, I guess, because rechargeable batteries aren't going to work. And also, why do these things take AA? Shouldn't it have a lithium rechargeable ion?
I think AA is a final vestige of an old era.
Shouldn't they make the Instax Mini printer I have? It's Instax Square printer, but regardless, it has a battery built in. You recharge it with USB-C.
My almost every power cell I have to recharge things takes micro USB, and I still have one that takes mini USB.
What I'm saying is, like, why do the Instax cameras still take batteries? They should.
There's always someone who has
have a built-in battery and a USB cable of some kind.
Yep.
In the year 2024. Hopefully, the Instax Mini 13 camera will be that way.
I have one use case for a traditional battery, but that is not a use case that actually matters anymore in my life because I don't do this often enough for it to be a problem. But it's a use case more for mountain bikers specifically. An older style bike headlight that takes regular batteries, those things will last like 12 hours. And if you are like biking through the woods at night, you can't get away with USB-C charged ones because they usually only last at full brightness like an hour or two. But like that's an extreme edge case, and there's a lot of ways around that. But I still have one thing left in this apartment. We have an old keyboard that takes D batteries, and I'm old enough to have used things that took C batteries and single A batteries and triple A batteries. And none of that's going to mean anything to young people.
No.
But
I don't know how they made something that was so sensitive that it like.
I bet they skimped out on the voltage regulator or something like that. Like they just.
I don't know what. I'm sure someone who knows more about electronics will know. But like,
you know who we could ask? You know what we should ask? I should ask Big Clive. Like, hey, what's up with this camera? Because for all we know, he'll get one and do a video about it and then blow it up.
Maybe
Big Clive still remains one of my favorite YouTube channels.
Yeah, he might be able to tell you.
Yeah.
Why the camera is so sensitive that it works with no matter even if the battery's fully charged, it has to be an alkaline battery or apparently a non-rechargeable lithium battery, or it's just I don't know.
Yep. So I got a little thing that happened. So at work, I got a guy I work with, one of my peers. Like he's one of the senior leaders in the group. There's a council of 4 basically that run everything, and he's one of the 4. Big Mets fan, like Mets, like good. He loves the Mets, whether they win, whether they lose, and he's obviously a little bit disheartened recently.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him, and I actually convinced him because he's never had interest in ice hockey. He's never seen a game of ice hockey, and I was like, "Look, you should watch one Rangers game, just to see, because it would give you something to do after the Mets lose." And he
right.
And he was like, "You know what? I will." So he's gonna watch the next Rangers game. Dude has never seen.
I'm gonna go to the next Rangers.
Dude's never seen a hockey game before, but
in his whole life.
I mean, he may have seen a hockey game at some point, but like he hasn't like sat down on purpose and just like watched a hockey game on TV. Like he does not care. He likes soccer. He likes baseball. He likes cigars.
Okay. Well,
yeah, he's a cool guy actually. But so he's gonna watch a hockey game, and I'm actually kind of excited about this because the Rangers, if any of you out there have not been paying attention, are at least in the early season. I'm not going to project that. I'm saying nothing about the future. I am making no implications. I'm simply saying of the hockey games that have happened so far this season, the Rangers have played those specific hockey games incredibly well.
Yeah, that doesn't say that, but even if the thing is, if you look at the standings, right, it's like, Winnipeg has 6 wins, right? Winnipeg is like even crazier than the Rangers. The Rangers do have the biggest goal differential. They've outscored. They've scored 19 more goals than their opponent.
That's what's actually exciting me because like the Red Wings and the Leafs didn't play badly. It's just the Rangers played better.
Yeah.
But
Winnipeg has 17 more goals than their opponent than they've let in, which is 2 less. But basically almost every other team is
Yeah, but like the Habs played like crap, but the Habs are kind of a crappy team
terrible
right now. But one thing I remember, you and I talked about this last season, is that the difference between the contender teams and the non-contender teams is when a contender team plays a team that's good, the game might be close and they might win and lose. Like it can be like hockey's hockey. But when a contender plays a non-contender, it's almost always a blowout. And the Rangers historically wouldn't always have a lot of blowouts against shitty teams. Like they take a surprising loss or like beat a shitty team in overtime that really shouldn't happen. But they kicked the shit out of the Habs.
Yep, they sure did. And the Penguins. But then, meanwhile, Utah, formerly Arizona, that was the game that they lost in overtime and was closer. But actually, Utah is surprising everyone. I think they're going to be a playoff team.
I think the Red Wings are on the bubble. I think they have a chance.
They're not. I don't know.
Micheletti he mentioned the Red Wings, not this game, but recently. He was like, "Oh, they're in the bubble. They're a contender team this year. Their rebuild has come along, but we'll see." My family is not jazzed about me being a Rangers fan, but what are you going to do? I've lived in New York a long time at this point. But anyway, so in the news, what do you got?
So Oh, what did I have?
John Wick.
Oh yeah, so people like the John Wick and whatever. It's a whole franchise now.
Yeah, if you want to
But-
watch a guy just systematically shoot Russian mobsters in the head with a pistol over and over and over again, that's your movie.
Yeah, the fourth one went a little long, I'd say.
Yeah.
But, but anyway, the problem with this franchise is that it centers around one character, which they've associated with one actor, much to his financial benefit, I'm sure.
Yep.
But they can't really. It's hard to make more shit with that guy's not going to be in. So what else can you do? You got to start making stuff with other characters.
Got to do a prequel of like when John Wick is in elementary school and find some kid.
Yeah. But yeah, they interviewed one of the co-creators, Chad Stahelski. I don't know how to if that's pronouncing his name correctly. Sorry, Chad. But they're like, hey, what John Wick shit are you making? Because we know that it's popular and you want money and you're going to make more John Wick shit. Tell us what's on the docket. And he's like, there's a bunch of stuff on the docket. One of those things is going to be a prequel that's going to, partially include showing you, basically like leading up to the first movie, right?
Yep.
It's like, how did this guy who was a crazy assassin end up quitting, right? It'll partially tell you that, I assume. Among other things. But this particular prequel will be an anime.
Yep.
But is it an anime? Is it going to be made by Japanese people in Japan in the Japanese language? Or is it just going to be animated in a style that looks like anime? That is all unclear.
Yep, there's an Anime News Network article that has a little more, but it's still up in the air. Wait, live action script, John Wick, star Keanu Reeves, blah, blah, blah. No, that's just a bunch of fluff. Nobody has any more information. Anime News Network,
that's
everyone
all.
padded out the
They
article.
interviewed him. Hollywood Reporter interviewed him, and that's basically just one of the things he said in the interview, among other things.
The best line from the interview is he says, in terms of quality control and like, how do you maintain quality when you like expand a franchise? And the quote is, we didn't just work the last 10 years to see it all go to shit.
That's right. You worked the last 10 years to cash in.
Yeah.
They're cashing in. Just like, while the iron's hot, we're going to make as much John Wick shit as we possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, John Wick stuff gets a little repetitive. Like, I think the first one is still the best one, but I enjoy a John Wick. It's like watching a Spider-Man thing or a Superman thing. Like, he's a superhero.
I think the thing is that in the first one, we could probably do an episode about it. But
Did we do an episode on it?
I don't know. But in the first one, it's like they create a world and also...
We have never talked about John Wick on Geeknights.
Okay. But then, basically, like, in the following ones, it's like there's a balance between just action scenes with lots of constant fighting and the world that they've built.
Let us explain to you what the high table is.
Yeah, who's on the high table? It's like,
is it in the Wheel of Time?
Yeah, and all that kind of shit. And it's like the action scenes, no matter how well done and at times extremely well done, it's like they go on so long.
Yeah, and
it's just like,
and they go on.
I'm just sitting there for 5. It's like that's amazing, but it's like I'm sitting here for like 10 minutes watching guys punch and kick and shoot,
and
it's
like I like them, but yeah, it's you know what it is? It's a lot like reading Dumas, like The Count of Monte Cristo or The Musketeers. They're good, like they're really good stories, but they just keep going at this steady rate.
Imagine if you went to a roller coaster and it was a good roller coaster, right? And it goes up to the top of the hill, right? But you sit on the roller coaster for like 10 loops, not without stopping at the exit.
I actually have an anecdote where I did that once. Basically, I was at Cedar Point, and the Gemini is one of the steepest roller coasters in the world. It's a really old coaster. It's a steel coaster, but it has a wood frame. And it's not like huge. There's nothing super special about it, except that it has a really steep first drop, and it's like a solid roller coaster, like a solid B-level roller coaster. It's like 100 times better than the best roller coaster in Wildwood, which we both rode once that one time, and it was kind of shitty. We were on it, me and my brother, and it was on a day like when it was kind of cold and everyone thought it was going to rain, but then it didn't. So the park was mostly empty. So we rode it and it ends and the bars come up and then the operator's just like, you kids just want to stay on? Because there was no one in line. And we rode it for like an hour over and over and over and over again. And I will admit, I never got tired of it. And we only left because our parents came up and were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? We're going to go do something else.
I'm just saying, like, you know,
but
a few times around, it's just like, right?
Yeah. But anyway, and some other minor news. If you live anywhere near New York City, there's a thing that Emily and I have been to once before, and I'm going to go again. It's this Friday. There's an event called Animation Speakeasy, and it's in Brooklyn at a bar. But the cool thing about a link to it is that basically what they do is they get usually 3 animators, and this week, it's Ann Beal, Shane Fu, and Bill Plimpton. And I'm confident you've all heard of at least one of those 3 people. Those are the 3, but they don't get animators to talk about their own stuff. They get animators to talk about some short that they are fans of. So imagine the famous animator brings a short that someone else made that they just particularly like. Everyone watches it, and then they do a panel discussion talking about it, unpacking it, doing crit about it, and then they open it up to the crowd and have a convention panel style back and forth dialogue about the work.
Yeah, that seems to be hot. That kind of format seems to be hot these days. They got that, Criterion vault where they bring in the famous directors and they're like, show us which movies from this vault are, great and why you like them and whatnot. And there was actually at the New York Film Festival some weeks ago, they had a Criterion mini vault in a truck, and you could wait in line for 3 hours to go in the truck for a minute or two and film your own little video in the truck and also buy DVDs and Blu-rays from the truck, I guess. Or you could just go to their website and buy the Blu-rays directly. I don't know. I wasn't going to wait in line for 3 hours.
Yeah, but this is, I like this kind of format. I like this kind of dialogue just in general. And the last one we went to was fantastic. It was a really good time. Imagine, when you go to a con and there's a panel like that, and 99.9 repeating % of the time, if they ask the audience to say anything, it's terrible. 100% of the things the audience said were actually really good. It's a good crowd. So we'll be there on Friday in Brooklyn if any of you happen to live in the area. And I highly recommend this event. Just make sure you RSVP because it fills the fuck up. All right, put a little marker. But anyway, things of the day. So this guy, his YouTube channel, he has a mission. And this mission is great. He's trying to find in every Major League Baseball field in America the single worst seat. And this video talks about the worst seat at the Chicago White Sox's guaranteed rate field. And it's only a minute long, it's really short. And his criteria are pretty good. And if you don't know, if you've never been to baseball games in a place where baseball is actually popular, there are seats at baseball fields more so than in other sports where you just can't see anything. But somehow, this guy is finding the worst possible seat. But the best part about this thing of the day is if you scroll down, because one of the things he points out is that the worst seat will have people walking in front of you all the time because of where it is in relation to the stairs. And this comment from the YouTube, as a White Sox fan who's been to that stadium many times, you will not have to worry about people walking up and down the stairs. Nobody goes to the fucking games.
Oh, the White Sox are the worst team in baseball history. So.
Yeah.
And the Cubs are in the same city. You can go see them instead.
Yep. So you got a thing of the day?
Yeah. So, I bought this Chicago Manual of Style edition 18, which was a very opposite of regrettable purchase. It's extremely valuable purchase. But, like many, I try to avoid buying a hardcover book, but when you do, a lot of times they come with a book jacket. And the thing is, with a book jacket, is you don't want it on there. It's sort of annoying and in the way. But you also feel bad throwing it out in the garbage. And also, a lot of times, the underlying book that is underneath does have some identifying marker of what book it is. but sometimes not so much.
I've got some books where without the dust jacket, and unless like you can't see what the fuck the book is. It's just a gray hardcover.
And so when you get books at the library, the book jackets always have like those plastic covers on them. Right? And I'm like, I'm sure a lot of people, libraries are probably the people who do most of that plastic. The reason libraries do it is to make it hold up over time because it's getting used heavily because it's a library. But normal people who would do that to their books are probably the same kind of nerds who are like protecting their comic books in plastic and putting all their collectible cards in plastic and putting their video games in plastic and not opening Lego sets or those kinds of people. But it's like, if you do have a hardcover book that you're going to keep and you don't want to throw the book jacket out and you're actually going to use the book, the plastic thing probably isn't the worst idea, and I'm like, how do I get those? How do I put them on properly?
My strategy was always I would take anytime I wanted to look at the book, I'd pull it off the shelf. I'd take the dust jacket off. I'd leave it on the shelf where the book was, and I'd use the book without the jacket.
That's what I do too, but it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is.
So I'm like, all right, let's research the stupid plastic things. So apparently the plastic things are called, are Brodart, like book jacket protectors. Like Brodart is the company that like is basically the champion. As far as I can tell from the internet, they are the ones who make the ones that everyone's using, right? The other people making them are like imitators, some kind of monopoly, like YKK zippers or something. I don't know. But here is a YouTube video. There's a bunch of YouTube videos showing you how to put them on. All of them are too long or too slow or too crappy. So this isn't, the greatest how-to video I've ever seen, but it's the one that's short enough to be reasonable.
What's interesting, skimming through this video, this process, it wasn't a Brodart. I definitely used imitations, but one thing in my middle school and high school, especially middle school, that was required in public school is every kid had to make a book jacket for all their textbooks because if there was damage on the textbooks, they'd make you pay at the end of the year. And like teachers would like yell at you and send you home and you get in trouble if you didn't have a book jacket on all your books. And most kids made these piece of shit book jackets. I took the covers of Dragon magazines, I took book jacket protectors, and I made really fancy Dragon magazine book covers, and they were fantastic. And the process of doing
I always just used brown paper grocery bags.
That is what everyone did. The school even gave us instructions on how to turn a brown paper grocery bag into a book jacket.
Good luck getting one of those in the year 2024.
Or maybe kids just make them out of the Fresh Direct bag. But I made them out of Dragon magazine covers. And you know what? I was the coolest fucking kid in my middle school in a very narrow band of what is considered cool. In the meta moment, we will be live at PAX Unplugged. It's going to be a real good time. We have 2 events, both on Friday. Take your fucking turn, which I'm actually updating the slides and moving stuff around. I commit 20% of this panel will be different from previous times we've run it. Partly because I don't remember what the hell I was talking about with some of the slides that we have, so I'm just redoing it. And then after that, on Friday, Learn and Play, we're going to teach a room full of nerds in the Mox Gaming Lounge how to play Deep Sea Adventure Boost, the expansion to Deep Sea Adventure.
It's not in the Mox Gaming Lounge. Mox Gaming Lounge is a chain of game stores that are also restaurants.
The room, according to the schedule, is called the Mox Game Lounge because Mox is sponsoring the room.
Yes, they are sponsoring it's the Learn and Play room sponsored by Mox Gaming Lounge.
In the schedule, the room is called Mox Game Lounge, parentheses, room 201A.
Interesting.
I copy-pasted out of the PAX schedule.
I guess they've changed their sponsorship. Are they going to be a restaurant in there? I sure hope so. I need food.
The only annoying part of that is I used to always make, in the old days, I started making for many years loops that would play with like pop-up video stuff in the room while people were walking in. But now, as PAX has gotten these sponsorships, the Mox Game Lounge plays their video while people walk in, so I can't play my video.
I don't want to give anyone free advertising, but I will say I visited the Mox Gaming Lounge in Portland, Oregon while I was there, Oregon, whatever. And that place, it was just on a Saturday, right? Well, I guess it was a Saturday, but it was during the day. It was hopping in there. There
I
were
mean,
people
imagine if a
shopping.
place like that could exist in New York City. I'd be there all the time.
It was large. There were people shopping. There were people eating. I saw people role playing. I saw card game players. I saw the miniatures tables. Like, were all happening. It's like every kind of game was being played there, all around. It was it was like a convention. Like if there was one of those that was that active, and I could walk to it, I'd probably hang out there frequently. So if you have one near you, we don't have that in New York City because the real estate situation, commercial real estate would be too expensive.
Yep.
But if you live in Portland,
New York's a place where very profitable businesses cannot afford the rent to have a storefront in New York City.
Yeah.
And last meta moment thing, I cannot stress this enough. If anyone is listening to this, if you can vote in America, you've got to vote. Like, it is a big fucking problem if you don't vote in this upcoming election. I shouldn't need to tell you this. I'm not going to dwell on it. But if nothing else, make a plan for exactly how you are going to vote, because there's a lot of data that shows if you make a specific plan, even if the plan is after work, I am going to go vote on the election. If you make a specific plan, you are like way more likely to actually go and vote. I hope GeekNights listeners are smart enough to just vote without me needing to tell you that. But
I just have the same plan every time, which is there an election today of any kind? If there is, go outside, walk across the street, and vote after breakfast. The end.
Vote for the Democrats. I don't want the groundhog. If the groundhog sees its swastika, it's going to be a real bad time for a lot of humans for a long time. The Democrats have to win this one. And if you're listening to Geek Nights and you don't believe that, well, I don't know what to say except fuck you.
Also, we have a Discord server where you can come to,
I go in
talk to human beings
once every few months. I go in there and I post a bunch, and then I disappear for a while, and then
we have a forum where you can go to talk to other listener. I guess
there's 4 or 5 people who regularly post there, and I should look at the stats because last I checked, there was still a surprising number of people who have accounts and like log in and read everything. They just never say anything.
Yeah, you should just say something like if you consume a piece of media, just be like, hey. Watch this. Hey, I read this. Hey, I ate a good food today. Just, you can feel free to say just whatever the heck you want in there, as long as it's not, bad.
But also, lurking's cool. And lurking is a really important thing in online ecosystems. Like I respect the lurker. I think they're a big part of the world. But
yeah, you can lurk, but
But I guess say something a little bit, partly because even if we're on the good path and the election goes the decent way and the world gets a little bit better for a while, it's good to make connections with people who have similar views, because if the dark path happens, you need to know who your friends are. And little micro communities are the way you organize and find people you can trust, or at least people you know. That matters a lot. But also, I'd like to talk to some more nerds. I want to spend more time in the Geek Nights community. I do use the forum more than I use the Discord, just because I've been really busy lately. But I've actually been busy with mostly work stuff. Like, my job's actually difficult lately. I guess that's what happens when you get old and get a super senior role. But maybe I can retire before too long.
You seem to have failed at getting a new job.
It's hard to get a new job that is better than the current job. Like, it's easy to get another job with the kinds of skills I have, but it's hard to get a job that is just like better. And I have a rule I've followed my entire life. I will never switch jobs laterally. I will not go from thing to basically the same thing working for a different company. Like, that's almost never worth it. Anyway, there's a Terminator anime that was actually pretty good. We're going to talk about it today. Now, this anime was made by Production IG in collaboration with Netflix. Like, it's on Netflix. You can just watch it. You may know IG from such important anime as the Pat Labor movie, or The Heroic Legend of Arslan from 1991, or Ghost in the Shell.
Various Ghosts in the Shells, yeah.
FLCL. Like, Studio IG is one of the most important anime entities in history.
Mm-hmm. And they tend to only work on something that's, somewhat of a big deal, and more often than not some sort of sci-fi thing.
Yep. But So Terminator Zero is not even that long. It came out this year in August, like late August 2024. It's only 8 episodes long. And we're going to review it. We're not going to give you spoilers or anything because it's short. Like, if you care about Terminator stuff at all, just watch it. But I'll say I've actually only watched the first half of it because it's only 8 episodes.
I watched the whole thing.
But what's interesting is the first half is a pretty good story that ends on not a cliffhanger, but like a turning point.
Every
And-
episode basically is a cliffhanger until the end.
True. But I enjoyed it. As someone who has very strong opinions about the Terminator franchise and how there are only 2 movies in the Terminator franchise that are worth watching, this was pretty good. Like, this is, I'd say, broadly about as good of a sci-fi as good at being a Terminator thing as Terminator 1 was, but it's not Terminator 2. Like, I'm not going to pretend this has achieved the heights of what I think Terminator 2 did, considering everything in that context, but it's worth watching, and I highly recommend it, but now we can talk about some of why.
Well, I think the best thing about it is that, you know, the fundamental thing in any Terminator movie is that there's this robot, right? And it has been programmed with a directive to, you know, do something, usually kill somebody.
A high percentage of the time, it is kill Sarah Connor.
Right. Kill a specific person. And there's not a lot that person can do, you know, to get, say, like military aid to fight it. Right. It's not.
Well, that's it. One of the most important parts of any Terminator franchise item is that the Terminator is effectively an unstoppable force, like Conan the Barbarian. It's a force of nature. You can't fight it, at least not directly.
Right. It's like you can try to fight it, but you won't like destroy it easily, right? It's always just gonna. It doesn't even go fast. Like sometimes it runs, like it'll run after a car occasionally, but it's like it only does that like when it sees the target and it's like, and you're trying to get away from it, it'll chase you. But most of the time, it just walks slowly. It does, you know, it can investigate and do research like a detective, and it just does it like slowly and methodically. But it doesn't ever stop, right? Like you can dump it down into like, you know, a bottomless pit, and it's like a week later, here it comes. It's still coming.
I am a big, one of my favorite tropes in horror is the slow, inexorable force that's coming for you. And Terminator 1, if like a lot of people, and I bet the GeekNights listener is one of those people, most people who know anything about Terminator saw Terminator 2 and have never seen Terminator. Like, I know a lot of people who have never seen Terminator. Terminator, the beginning of this entire franchise, is a sci-fi horror movie, and it's just that. There's just a Terminator very slowly walking towards Sarah Connor. That's the movie.
Yep. And so that, you know, sort of terror of like, it's, you know, is it a scary thing? It's not a scary jump out and go boo thing. It's not, it doesn't look scary. It's just like a robot that looks like a person, right? It's not like a, you know, crazy, gory, nasty monster or anything like that. Or, you know, it's just going to kill you, and you can run, but it's still coming, right? What are you going to do? This looming death. And so the anime recognizes that and captures that, right? Where the characters, the Terminator is coming for them, and it just keeps coming. And they didn't mess that part up, which I think a lot of the Terminator media that I've seen, other than the first 2 movies, does not do that. All right. There was, I don't know, it might have been the 3rd movie I saw. I don't forget because I watched it once and put it out of my mind.
I will admit,
but
I have never, and this is purposeful, consumed any Terminator media except Terminator 1 and Terminator 2.
I think.
And Terminator Zero.
I think I've seen the 3rd. It was either the 3rd movie or the 4th movie. It seems like there are, according to Wikipedia, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 movies.
God
so
damn.
I've only seen half of those. I don't know if I've seen the 2003 or the 2009 movie. There was a TV series. Didn't see that. And then there was a Machinima series on the web. There were 2 of them, a YouTube one. I didn't see those. And then there's the anime. And then there's a lot of comic books. I've read a couple of those, I guess.
But like, think about how scary that is. Like, imagine there's a thing that's walking slowly.
Oh, I went to
towards you.
I went to the Terminator ride at like
Oh
the
yeah, I did the
at
Terminator ride.
Universal Studios in Florida, which I guess doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I rode
Or they have a
old Star
different one
Wars
now?
ride.
No, they don't have any now.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I don't think there's not that many people on Earth who have ridden the original Star Wars ride down there.
Anyway, that's still there, I think.
Is
though,
it
right?
the original
I
one?
think they've changed the video on it though.
But think about it, like even if you get away from the Terminator, like you somehow get on a plane and fly to the other side of the world, you know that it's eventually going to find you again. Like maybe it's just
It'll
walking
either
across
it'll
the
either
ocean.
get its own plane or it'll like walk on the bottom of the ocean and eventually walk out of the ocean to on the other side of the world.
But the inexorable force is super important. I think the second thing that is really important about a good, proper Terminator is that there is a time loop. Because it's a time travel story. It is a Terminator sent from the future by an evil AI, with an asterisk for, if you don't know what Terminator's about, well, anyway, that's sent back in time to kill someone to change the future. But in Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, the act of sending something back in time actually caused the future event to appear, and you have a full-on time loop. Terminator 1, Terminator 2, and now Terminator Zero correctly do the time loop in a way that the other Terminators don't seem to have done.
Right, and you think, oh, it's just doing the same thing again, but it's like, well, you kind of have to do that because otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah,
right?
otherwise it's a very different kind of story.
And it's like, oh, well, a lot of times people, they want all the answers, right? Of like, this is it turned out this way, right? It's like, you can't do that either.
Yep. Terminators have to end, hopefully, but not conclusively, which Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 both definitely did.
Right. And so this anime, I think it's not necessarily a negative, but it is very anime, right? There is like a whole, and while there is that Terminator component, there is a big anime component
it feels like 80s sci-fi anime, like some of my, which is a type of anime that is some of my favorite anime.
Yeah, I mean, there's, it has this sort of terrible secret of space, but it has this guy talking, like, in a room, just talking to this AI.
Well, that guy is definitely Gendo coded. There's a whole Gendo adjacent situation there.
It's like,
also,
he's like,
I want to point out, he is really bad at negotiating with that AI and really bad at defending. Of all the people who could be in that room, he might be the worst possible person to be in that room.
He's the one who made it. That's
at that time.
It was his idea. That's the problem.
Yeah, but he's bad at it.
He is not great at it. But also the AI he's talking to is like an anime girl. So it's like he's basically like, all right, I made an anime girl AI that's going to fight. Hopefully I can convince it to fight Skynet for us.
Please save humanity. And she's like, why? And he's like, I don't know. I'm actually bad at this. Maybe we aren't worth saving. And the anime girl's like, okay.
Yeah, and basically that whole part of it is like so anime, and like the three kids, with someone that running away with like basically their nanny is sort of like a Masato kind of character.
Yeah.
Only less confident. It's basically a lot. It's like what if the unstoppable Terminator went into an anime that wasn't a Terminator anime and started chasing some of the characters.
But it acts
down.
exactly like the 80s live action Terminator, but in an anime world. Like that's how it feels. Because the Terminator,
the anime part
around.
of it is kind of, it's not the great. It's not bad, but it's not like an S tier kind of anime. It's like it's an anime. It's a sci-fi anime.
It is very anime, those parts. But what it does really well is instead of like doing like subtle homage to like Terminator, or instead of just recreating things that happened in the old Terminator, it'll have like shots, like individual shots or individual scenes that are framed exactly like a specific scene from Terminator 1 or Terminator 2, but it's just like a moment that you can, if you've seen those movies and you think a lot about them, you'll internalize and recognize, but then it'll diverge and do something else. Like it's a kind of homage I haven't seen that often. I'm thinking like some specific examples are the scene when she's trying to get the phone call to the dad. And it's the exact same framing as in Terminator 2 when they're in Cyberdyne Systems in the office building with the light coming into the windows and the helicopter outside. It's like the same shot for a moment, but it's not like the same scene. Other things are happening. And lots of what happens in this anime are very evocative of specific moments from Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, but it jumps around which movies it's referencing when. But then it does some other things like the police station scene.
Yep, police station scene.
What a fucking triumph! Just that it's the same scene, and there's the moment where the cop who's like actually trying to figure it out says the line, this is the safest place you could be." And I'm pretty sure, I haven't seen Terminator 1 in a long time, I think the cop says the exact same thing to Sarah Connor right before the Terminator comes back.
Well, the cop has no. He's like, where could you be that's safer than a police station if you're not the bad guy, and the police are actually on your side. Somehow, miraculously.
And if it's just one guy chasing you, no matter how violent he is, he's one guy. We're a bunch of roided up police officers with a ton of guns. And the scene plays out pretty much the same way as it did in Terminator 1.
So, I mean, if you like a Terminator, but you're expecting like something as like, legendary as Terminator 1 or 2, you're not going to find that here, right? It's like you can't. It's like asking people to continue a franchise but then add a new entry to a franchise and have it be as S tier as the existing S tier entry in that franchise. Is like, it's like, who can possibly do that? Especially, right? It's so difficult to, it's like, come on, right?
Yeah.
You could say, well, just make something new. And I'd say, yeah, I agree. Please make new things. Stop doing the sequels and the prequels and the remakes and the whatever. I'd be very happy with that. But if you're going to do it, it's like, at least what you can do is stick to the formula, but still add something new and just don't fuck it up. And at least it might be worth someone's time. It won't be a waste of time. It's like, I always say, like, hey, Nintendo, Nintendo loves to mix it up every time they make a new game, right? Even if they're in the same franchise. But it's like, sometimes it's like you can just do the same one again, right? And just slightly tweak it, right? You could have just made Super Metroid 2. As long as you don't make Super Metroid 3, 4, or 5, that's too far.
Yeah.
But you can just do the same thing again. You hit gold. It's okay to make gold another gold that's the same as the other one, right? And they made Breath of the Wild, and then they made Tears of the Kingdom, right? And that's what I'm talking about, is you do the same thing, crook slightly so, and that's good. You can just do that. You don't need to go... A third one might be too much, but just 2 is okay. So here, it's sort of like, yep, you made a solid entrant into the franchise. Is it legendary at S tier? Obviously not. But is it garbage like some of the other ones I haven't seen or purported to be, or the one I put out of my mind kind of was? No. Right?
Well, that's the two questions
it
I
might
would
bounce
ask
off people who aren't anime.
Like, the questions you ask of something like this is, one, why is this a Terminator movie other than another movie? And in this case, because it hits the same core beats and has what I would consider the essential elements of a Terminator.
Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't have watched it.
Yep.
Right?
Or it wouldn't have needed to be a Terminator. It could be something completely different, like Mars Express.
You can't deny that if they threw this anime on Netflix and it was just a completely new IP, we wouldn't have watched it, at least not yet. I wouldn't to talk about it yet. So it's like, for all my complaining about not being original, I'm part of the problem, and that, it kind of works. Like, I went to see that new Alien movie, right?
Yep.
It's like,
but the second question I would ask is, why should I watch this if I've already seen Terminator 1 and Terminator 2? And I'm getting something out of it. And my advice to all of you, if you have not seen Terminator 1, watch it before you watch this. It's not necessary, but you'll get a lot more out of this anime if you have actually seen Terminator 1. Like that famous line, "I'll be back." That's from Terminator 1. Terminator 2 was referencing Terminator 1 when Arnold says, "I'll be back."
Now that I know that there's 6 movies, even though I've heard that they're bad, I kind of maybe I should just go and watch them anyway.
Yeah. That's the kind of movie I'd watch on a plane when I'm on the plane for 18 hours.
Just to see what the fuck is going on over there.
Yeah. I mean, Terminator 2 is just like, for a lot of reasons, have we ever done a show on like Terminator 2?
I don't think.
I'm gonna see. Have we ever talked?
I
about
haven't seen it in many years.
Terminator? No, we have never reviewed Terminator. This is the first time we've ever talked about a Terminator franchise item on the show, except in relation to Scavenger's Reign and Mars Express. And building
I should
a
say that
computer for some reason.
the other thing about Terminator, right, is that in terms of a sci-fi, it covers, it's one of those sci-fis that can cover a lot of bases. Like I remember we talked about Mars Express. Yeah, and how Mars Express covered literally every sci-fi base there is. Right? But Terminator covers a lot. It basically covers everything except for outer space is covered by Terminator, right?
Especially Terminator 2. Like Terminator 2, if you've somehow listened to GeekNights and never seen Terminator 2, it's like the fact that it's an action movie is secondary to, like, it introduced a lot of concepts to people that they'd never thought about before that in the year 2024 are shockingly and dangerously prescient.
Yeah, it's like anything that, the major themes of science fiction novels, right, and stories that don't have to do with outer space, because Terminator is strictly on Earth. They're mostly covered in Terminator.
Yep.
And so, whereas it's not just the one thing, it's not just the evil AI, it's not just, robots and cyborgs and the line between machine and man, and and is man gonna kill themselves in a nuclear war and time travel? It's all those things at once. And
but also
and
the thing that strikes me the most, especially considering the election that's about to happen, is like, think about in Terminator 2, Sarah Connor. You know the fucked up future that awaits if you don't stop it, but yet you're powerless to stop it. And I think a final big theme of Terminator is that the Terminator itself, the individual Terminator, is an inexorable horror force, but there's a meta story about the characters in encountering the Terminator realize that there is a much bigger inexorable force of the AI holocaust that's coming for them that cannot be stopped. They're equally inexorable and they evoke each other. And that's like the core theme of Terminator. What do you do when you see the future and you convince other people that the future is there, and yet none of you have the power to stop it? And all you do is either try to figure out how to stop it or give up.
Yeah, there's some crazy conspiracy, but it's actually real. And you've seen evidence that it's real. It's not just some made up thing, but you can't get enough evidence to show anyone else and make them believe. It's very difficult to do, right?
One of the best scenes in Terminator 2 is when Sarah Connor's in the mental institute and like they locked her up because they think she's crazy, but yet like they have the video of the fucking original Terminator attacking the police station, and they just kind of blow it off and cover it up and don't trust her and don't listen to her.
I mean, it's the thing is, it's like you see a lot of other media that are, have some similar, magic or whatever. And it's like, why are people so stupid? Why are people not believing the truth? Why are people, but in Terminator, it's at least in the ones that I've seen, that's actually never an issue. People are acting, the humans are acting according to
every
common
human
sense.
who sees the Terminator and is like, oh, fuck, she was right. Well, fuck me.
It's like it's a scenario in which people can act right in common sense, even though it's a stupid thing to do, because who would believe that until they do believe that, and then they change how they act quickly. And you never have to be like, like other horror movies where it's like, oh, they got killed because those idiots messed with the thing. It's like, why did they do that? Those fools, right? You don't have that in any Terminator. People act in a rational manner given their situation at all
in Terminator 2,
times,
you've got the cigarette fall, just like in Ghostbusters in that one scene.